Hi, welcome to Migration Success to the Cloud. I'm Beth Burrell, the Global Black Belt and Senior Technical Specialist, and I've done hundreds of these migrations. And here with me is Pravin. Pravin, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, this is Pravin. I'm a Principal Fast Track Solution Architect, and I take care of on-prem to online migrations. I'll be talking about it today.
And we're going to go over a few things when it comes to migration in the cloud. We'll talk about a little bit about what the benefits are, the architecture and approach, and then some things to think about and consider. And then at the end, we'll have some QA. We've had a lot of people go through the cloud and do this migration. Luckily, we have the fast track team to help us move that along and do some migrations with us. And Reen, I think we've done a couple hundred. I think you've probably done a couple thousand, but I've done a couple hundred with you. And it's pretty smooth process, and we all make sure you're prepped and ready to go. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the benefits and what to expect, and a little bit of overview of what the cloud will bring you. So if you look at this slide, I'll talk a little bit about why to migrate, and we're going to go over some of the information about, what makes the security a little safer, your integrations, the cost, reducing time to administration, and several of these other options that are available and benefits that you have going to the cloud. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that it doesn't have to be complicated, right? When you are on premise, it's mostly your people doing the work, right? They're focused on making sure the code's modified, make sure everything's updated and compatible, and all the integrations. And you only have so many people in your IT department. When you're in the cloud, it makes the process easy, and you have people doing that for you. If you put all the people that are doing the work, you have hundreds and hundreds of years of experience doing that, plus the latest and greatest training and all the different technologies. So you don't have to worry about keeping your people as updated on the maintenance of the system. They can do more important things like projects and making sure that everybody's learning the product. Whereas when it's in the cloud, it takes a lot of that mundane work off your people and saves you so much time and effort. It also keeps you up to date on the latest releases, and we'll talk about that in a second. So why should a customer care? Look at this, shows you the different versions of, this is CRM, not so much AX, but this shows you all the different reasons why you wanted to go to cloud, right? You have a UI, and the experience is the same on no matter what device you're on. If you're on a tablet, if you're on a phone, or you're on a desktop, your experience is just about the same. It reduces time to customization. So many things are built in these days. Hardware, right? The average lifetime of hardware, or if you're an accountant, you accrue the life of the equipment over 3 years or 5 years, depending on your need. So you don't have to worry about upgrading every 3 to 5 years. You don't have to worry about your system failing. You don't have to worry about any of those hardware updates. The platform's flexible. You can upgrade or add people at any time or reduce people. They call it elastic, right? You have tons of time to add, if you have also a lot of data, it automatically adds for you. You don't have to worry about, okay, I got to go buy a hard drive. I got to put it in. I got to do the RAID, all that other stuff. And then again, the mobile app part is huge, right? The mobile is something that we all live on our phones, right? We all live on our tablets. How many people, except when you're at work, how many people are really working on a desktop anymore? I think my son barely knows what a laptop is. He just uses it for his homework at school. So you can do everything on the phone as well, right? Whether you're using sales or customer service or finance, all of that availability is on your phone without you doing anything extra. And then your integrations are seamless, and we'll go into that shortly. So one of the big things we want to talk about is security in the cloud. Authentication is through Active Directory, or you can do it, different ways, but you can have MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. You don't have to worry about that once it's configured. It's like, let it go and run. Governance, who can pull data, who can send data, who can export data. Governance, if you have different compliances, right? PII or ITAR, so that you can do all this through governance, right? GDPR, those are all the big things. Data storage, again, you can control your data storage. You can, at a glance, look at your logs. You can look at how much data. You can make sure everything's running smoothly, and you expand that storage with a click of a button. Again, the customer data. You can make sure you have a customer locks box that makes sure the data is not exposed to the outside world. You can lock it down in one administration console and not have to worry about, okay, which ports am I locking down? Which, systems can they get through? It's all with the connections and the data sources all come through one system, and you can set it and forget it almost with your, authentication. Obviously, you still have to work on the users, but this is all setting on the system, and you don't have to set on 15 different systems. And lastly, analytics. You can get analytics from any point in time of any part of the system, right? Whether it's users what users are using logged in, what applications are using most data. There's analytics within the system that you can look at any time to make sure that your system is running efficiently and security is up to par for your environment. So some of the things that you gain by migrating to the cloud, instead of being reactive, you're being proactive, right? All this stuff happens. There's 2 upgrades a year, 2 major upgrades a year, and those happen. They get scheduled. You can work with Microsoft to make sure you put it in your sandbox first, and then you put it in your production. But this way you can test that without having to, okay, everybody get off the system. I got to upgrade. You don't have to. And if something goes wrong on premise, right, you have hours and hours of work to fix it. In the cloud, our upgrades are tested and over and over again. And when you put it in your sandbox or your test environment, it's there to play with and work with and turn on to make sure none of your applications are broken or any of your customizations or configurations. So it's a very proactive approach. You have one connected data view. There's one place to look at the data, right? You can see, like I said before, you have a console where you can see all your data and all your applications. You don't have to click on every server and log into every server to see what's going on. Holistic data, again, it's seeing all the data. You can put it together, whether you use Power BI or use the out-of-the-box reports. All the data is in one place. You don't have to say, okay, let me go look at this application. Let me go look at this application. It's not, again, it gives your IT people, they're still needed, but it gives them time to do the more important things and to do the administration work. And then you have data-driven outcomes, which actually you look at the reports and say, okay, our KPIs, whatever's working towards what we need. So the reports are automatically kept. You don't have to create them. You don't have to put them together in an Excel spreadsheet. It's just making it a one Microsoft system to look at. And so we call it transformation, right? I know it's an overly used word, but in the cloud, we have one system. It's one layer. It's a one-stop. It's one. I took it one throat to choke, so to speak. You have the Azure layer, right, where you have security and management and compliance. We talked about that a second ago. You have they have the platform, which is Dynamics 365 runs on the Power Platform. You've heard a lot about Power Platform. And then GitHub is where you can get a lot of your applications and your code and your resources. And then on top of that, you have the application layer, which is the Microsoft 365, which is Microsoft Teams, Word, Excel, and then Dynamics, whether you're using the CE version, which is the the CE version, which is sales service, field service, marketing, or you might be using finance, e-commerce. That's all, the layers. Then on top of that, if you're using industry cloud, and we're not going to go into industry cloud too much here, but industry cloud is finance, health, PubSec. That can go on top of all this. And lastly, if you have any partners doing any information and any applications or ISVs, so the partners give you the option to put things on top of it. And usually that's just an installation of a solution. So all these things are on a single platform, which makes, like I said, security easier, management easier. And we're going to get to AI in a second, but it just gives you one place to manage all your systems. So this is how the platform's built. I just wanted to go over to a little bit so you can see what we just talked about. We have the different layers of, system in Azure. You have Active Directory, the Dataverse, which is your database. All this information, I'm not going to go into each piece of it, but this shows you the different layers, right? You can have your data services and your services. And then you go with, we talked about our low code, no code system, which is Power Apps and Power Automate. We have Power Pages, which is for web pages. And then you have the application, sales, commerce, marketing, et cetera. So again, it's a one Microsoft system. And then we'll go into a little bit. This is just breaks it up between the old AX and CE for those of you who are on premise, right? Customer engagement is the CE part. And we call it AX, which is then it was finance and operations. Now it's connected operations. And it just, separates the two here. So you can see that you can get together. They work together for data intelligence security. Where now if you have the AX and CE on premise, you have to work them very independently. This way you can actually, like I said, make it one Microsoft and work with them together. So again, this just helps you with the one thing that, like I said, again, you get in the cloud that you don't have on premise is it makes it more efficient, to get your information. You get to classify things easily. You got the better integration, better together, as we've talked about. Your customer is so much happier because they don't have to wait. Your time to help a customer is a lot shorter. You have, like I said, single platform. And again, I'm not going to read all these slides, but again, it's a one Microsoft. And I just want to show you several ways so you can see. And if you have, artificial intelligence is the buzzword right now. And with it all being one platform, you have a lot easier time getting all this information without having to wait for it to compile or pull it in from 50 different sessions or applications. Integrations. We have over 1,000 different connectors that have been approved, or you can create your custom connector. So if you're using a third-party app or a competitor app, or you want to integrate with any of these apps, these custom connectors are already approved, right? It's an API-based connection. And if you have an application that doesn't already have a connector, you can actually use the API to create a custom connector. Nowadays, if you want to connect, your on-premise system to another system, you either need to use Kingsway Soft or Scribe or something to move the data back and forth. It's not, or export Excel. It's not so easy to connect the data. With the integration online, it makes it very easy to connect your data and move your data back and forth. On-prem, I've done it 100 times, right? I've worked with the different applications so that you move, information back and forth. It's great, but this makes it more near real time. And the other one is, okay, we got to wait for it to work. If it breaks, we got to figure out where it broke. This pretty much is one place to look again, immediately if something didn't work right. And the APIs are all there. And that's, what everybody's working off the APIs these days. Again, real insights. I'm not going to, like I said, read the slide, but it tells you what's going on with your system. We talked about this a little bit. This is just one for customer service, but you can do this with sales or any of your systems where you have the automatic insights on what's going on in real time. If you're using customer service, you can look at CSAT. If you look at sales, you can see what your opportunities or leads or your percentage of wins might be. This is all right out of the box. On-prem, some of this stuff might be there, but it's slower to come to on-prem, right? In the cloud, updates are every 6 months. There's minor fixes throughout the year, but your updates are April and October, and they span some time, and you're always on the latest and greatest, right? And today, we all talk about artificial intelligence. We're data happy, right? We want to see the data in 20 different ways. We want to see how well everybody's performing. This helps your managers and everybody keep a pulse on how the system is performing. So I'm going to this is just going to build and show you how you can be delivered to any point. Insights can be delivered at any point in the platform. You can actually look at it at the connector level, at the integration level, analytics, and then again, all our applications that we talk about. So this way you don't have to, again, if you're on premise, you have to go, okay, well, how's my data transfer going? Okay, how's the unification going? Is the data working well? Okay, let me create, these reports for my managers. I have to create all these Excel reports. I can't imagine working in Excel anymore for my reporting. You don't know how many customers, and Pravin will tell you, have everything in a spreadsheet. Let's do the spreadsheet, let's create a graph from the spreadsheet. And that's great for on-prem, but when you go online, it saves you so much time and money. So again, you're not spending your time creating things that can be done automatically, and you have more time to do your daily job. Because we're doing more with less these days. That's the motto across the world, more with less. And this actually gives you time to do more. And then why, these are some of the main reasons why we moved to the cloud. Security, flexibility. your IT maintenance. I worked with one customer who they actually took they were still doing tape backup, right? And they took their tapes and they're carrying it in his backpack home every day. Was his DR plan. In the cloud, you have automatic backups, and we mirror our systems to another region or another data center. So there's literally no downtime. So disaster recovery and backups are taken care of for you. So you don't have to worry about that. You can have a copy of your data on-prem if you want, but this is automatically done for you, restores. All this stuff is done with the help of the cloud. The other things, you have new functionality. Every day something's coming out, right? We all heard about ChatGPT, right? Everybody wants to play with ChatGPT. Well, our sales application, or Viva Sales, is now integrated with that, with OpenAI. You're going to see all the Dynamics products coming out with OpenAI solutions. You see them all over the internet. But as the coming months, you're going to, if you want access to that without doing your own build, it's there. And going to the cloud will help you with those analytics. And then you're also going to be built in all the modernization, right? It's up to Microsoft to keep everything updated. You don't have to worry about, okay, my hardware is dying, or I have to turn this off because I live in Florida, right? A hurricane's coming. I remember the days I used to be a server, I call it, server jockey or a server person. And a hurricane would come, we'd have to shut all the servers down and then we're the last ones out and the first ones in the morning to power them up. And when does hardware fail? When you turn it off and turn it back on. So no longer do you have to worry about that because Microsoft has so much redundancy built in that it really is something you don't have to worry about anymore. And we have SLAs and all that in the cloud. So it really takes a lot of the mundane work off your IT department. We have people who worry about touching the servers. Well, you can do almost anything you want on here, but all the maintenance is taken care of by Microsoft. And you are using the latest and greatest. And anybody in IT, anybody in technology, they want the latest and greatest, right? We all update our phone daily. So I don't know why you wouldn't migrate to the cloud, because it definitely saves you time, and time is money, and growth and planning for the future. I know I said a lot in a small amount of time, but with that, I'll probably hand it over to Pravin to go through the process and how to go to online to prem. But any questions, please feel free to ask them. Pravin, why don't you take control? And
yeah. Thanks, Beth. Okay, let's move on and look into different approaches involved in the process of migration. So we have classic data migration that you all are aware of. Like we have either third-party tools or the custom-built tools that we use to take the data that we want selectively from the on-prem and then move them online. And then you'll build applications on top of the online environment after the migration is complete. That is a lot simpler, and you have complete control over the data that you would like to migrate online. The challenges with this approach is you have the data throttling limits, the API throttling limits that you will hit, especially if your database is huge. And then there's another challenge that most customers are concerned about, which is you cannot move the audit logs or audit data to the online from the on-prem. That is one of the biggest challenges with this approach. And the amount of time that you need to invest to write these scripts that helps you to migrate your data online is enormous. Like you have to spend a lot of time and money on that one. And obviously, it is up to you which approach that you want to take, but it is really important for you to evaluate both methods available before you take the decision. The other approach that we talk about right now is like on-prem to online migration tooling that Microsoft offers. The benefit of this approach is like it's a complete database migration. So we are not going to selectively pick and choose the data that you want to migrate, but we are going to just pick up the database and then restore that database in the online. It's not as simple as it sounds, but it is what that is the approach that we take. And so the benefits of this approach is that you are going to have this complete audit data moved across, and you will be able to retain your the timestamps, and you will not hit that API throttling limits that we talked about in case of the data migration process. And this approach is much faster, especially when you're bringing in bigger databases. This is going to save a ton of time. And it is also much easier and simpler for you to bring your small databases. It's as simple as lift and shift in a way, but it has to go through a process which I'm going to talk about. So these are the benefits and disadvantages of these two approaches that are available. And we can just evaluate which one suits your need, and then you can just pick and choose which one you want to go with. So when it comes to the on-prem to online migrations, which is what we are going to focus on today, so we have a tool that we have already, I mean, most of you are already familiar with. This is called as Lifecycle Services. So we leverage that tool. So the complete migration process is orchestrated through LCS. And the tool is proven, the cloud hosted, and it's best of all, it's a Dynamics product. Uh, so what we do with this my process is we expect you to upload the database to us, and then we stage the database, which is nothing but if you're coming from CRM on-prem 2013, for instance, so we will make sure that your CRM on-prem 2013 is upgraded all the way through the latest on-prem version before you land your database in the online world. So that is what we do as part of the staging in the upgrading process. And the end outcome is that your database, which you have uploaded, will show up in the D365 tenant that you have in the online. So you can just access it. You can validate your environment. You can see if all the data has been moved successfully and the solutions which are compatible in the online environment, if they're working as expected. So this is the process, this is the approach that we take as far as upgrade is concerned. So there are certain things that we need to keep in mind, especially when you're dealing with this LCS tool. So what is this tool capable of? What is this on-prem to online migration is capable of? So it does, as I called out earlier, it does a full database migration. We cannot pick and choose the data, the amount of data that you want to migrate through this. And no differential or the delta data sync-ups, which is possible through this approach. However, so you will be able to migrate everything like your solutions, your audit logs, your user and the personal settings, everything can be migrated to online with this approach. However, you cannot, or this tool cannot really fix or reconfigure your integrations. So you have to do that manually post-migration. Let's assume that if your on-prem instance has an integration with your custom-built application or SharePoint Online, for instance. So this tool cannot automatically reconfigure those integrations. You have to configure them after the migration is complete as part of the post-migration steps. And we also have a strong team, which is 24/7. We call it as a on-prem to online migration factory team. And there will be someone from the factory team who is always monitoring the migration and providing you the status updates on the progress of the migration. And if you need any help or anything from you, they're going to reach out to you. So this factory team will provide you with, if they're going to unblock if there's any failures as part of the migration as well. However, this team is not going to do or work on the prerequisites on your behalf. So we expect you to complete all the prerequisites before you upload the database to us. The list of prerequisites and how to accomplish them has been very clearly called out in the white paper. We recommend you to follow the steps and then upload the database to us. And then the factory team is going to help you with this migration. And currently, so on the right side of the slide, if you see the supported SQL Server and the CRM on-prem versions that we have. Okay, so these are the ones that we are supporting currently.
And one thing I want to say is that you can practice this. I call it practice, but you can test this as many times as you need to work on timing and fixes. That I've worked with the factory many times, and they're amazing. They answer all your questions. They're spot on. They work all the time. And Pravin knows me well. But you can do this. Obviously, they recommend you do it at least once, but doing it 2 or 3 times is fine if you want to do it. You get to 50, 60 times, they might start rolling their eyes, but they're always willing to help you make sure that your migration is successful. So, test migrations and practice is definitely something they recommend and they love to do with you guys.
Good call out, Beth. So we also have the production rest rehearsal migrations that you can run a week before the production migration to actually see or experience how the production migration would look like. And then let's move on to the next slide. So this is a typical example of how, in case if your on-prem version is on CRM 2015. So what are the different steps that are involved in the process of migration? So the first and foremost step is, as I mentioned earlier, so complete all the prerequisites that are called out in the white paper, and then take a full backup from the on-prem and upload it to the storage blob that we have linked to the LCS project. And we'll import your database. We'll stage the database, basically. So we'll import the database and upgrade it to the next supported version, which is CRM 2016. And we'll upgrade further it to CRM 9.x, which is the next version which is supported. And all through this migration, all through this staging process, we are going to run validations, and we are going to do the cleanups, and we are going to make sure that the database is healthy. And then as a last step, we'll validate and map users. This is a very important step, which is one of the challenges that, especially when you're doing the data migration. So this, you cannot accomplish this user mapping in a very seamless manner. But here you can actually identify the list of users that you would like to migrate online and map those users and upload that file to us. And as part of the migration, we are going to consume the content of this user mapping file, and then we are going to map the users. And once the environment is migrated online, those users can log in and then validate and see if their data is still present. So it's a very easy process. So so far, as Beth mentioned several times during the call, so we have done hundreds of migrations, and then over the last 4 to 5 years. And the range of the users and the range of the database size is really, it's called out here, like you can just come, there are customers that we have migrated with just 5 users. There are customers that has come to us with like 50,000, over 50,000 users that we migrated through this approach. And the size of the database is also mind-boggling. Like you have a database which is just 1 gig of size to 3 terabytes. So this is a range of database size as well as the user count that we have handled so far. And best of all, this service is free to utilize. And why don't you want to use this then? So so there's no nomination needed here. You can just reach out to your account, Microsoft account team, and then get yourself nominated to this program and get started. That's as simple as that. And the other important point to call out here is like 60% of the migrations which we have done so far are done by the internal staff of that particular customer. So there is no partner involved. And the internal dev teams have been involved in this process. They worked with us very closely, and they have been able to migrate successfully online. Right. And then we also have, we can start with, as Beth called out, like the test migrations to the dry runs. We can start with your dev environment. We can then go with your UAT environment. And the amount of time it will take for us to migrate, especially when it's a dev environment, is 1 day. And it all depends on the size of the database. It all depends on the complexity of your customizations as well. But if you look at the majority of the migrations that we have done so far, it has taken just a day for us to migrate the dev environments. And then customer will go back, and then they're going to mitigate all the work, especially refactoring the customizations and taking a look at all the functionality. And then it may take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. It can take less than 3 months as well, but it all depends on the complexity of the implementation. And when it comes to the production migration, typically these are scheduled over the weekend. Friday evening, we are going to schedule this for most customers. And once the close of business, the database backup is taken, the prerequisites are complete, and the database is uploaded to us. By Monday morning, that customer goes live. The work happens over the weekend. As I called out, the factory team is available 24/7. So you can pretty much request your migration any time that you want. And then please reach out to your Microsoft account team or your partner that you work with to nominate yourself to this program.
And there are some tools to look at to tell you how complicated it is. Like I said, if you have a small system with not a lot of customizations, it might not be complicated. But if you have 50,000 users with 3 terabytes, it's probably a little more complicated. But there are tools out there to tell you how complicated it is. But again, ask anybody how long this migration would take. And Pravin's an expert at it. He probably dreams about this stuff, right, Pravin?
Yeah.
But it really is, if you're ready for the cloud, do your cost analysis, right? The time saved once you're in the cloud, so your IT people and your administrative people can do other things, is just amazing.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for listening to us.
And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Again, your partners can help you, your account team can help you. You do search on the docs and on migration, and some of the links are there to with the information. But the other thing that you get with this is experience. You get some of these people who migrate to the cloud and try to do it themselves with a tool that and they've only done a few. Well, I think Pravin's probably seen over 1,000 different scenarios, so that's where you get the experience of them migrating as well.
Correct.
With that, I think we want to thank you for your time, and please ask any questions we have them.